Hey folks, Mark here from RC Aviation and Crawling Pacific Northwest. Um, this is for new RC pilots, something that may help you as it greatly helped me when I was new at RC flying, and it's something that I still use to this day as an intermediate level, somewhere in the intermediate range level of RC pilot. So, so the first thing that I came up with that helped me learning and helps me a great deal now is for every flight, I do a flight plan. I plan my flight and I fly my plan. All right. And so what that involves first is the number 2 item on the list here, which is pre-flight scouting. So what I do is especially when I was new, I got in the car and I went driving around looking for any and all places that would be potentially good for flying, RC flying, in terms of safety being the number 1 factor, and then number 2 would be the how good is it for flying? How relaxed of a flying place is it, or is it somewhat of a little bit challenging of a flying place, right? So you go looking for places uh, with the view towards assessing the place for takeoff, flying, approach, and landing RC aircraft. So that's the first thing you do, all right? And then once you do that, then you're going to want to look at the particulars of that spot. Are there trees in close proximity that you're going to have to keep in mind when you take off, fly, and or approach and land? Um, so are there what are the obstacles that you need to avoid? They could be trees, they could be buildings, they could be parked cars, they could be pedestrians, right? So you look at the field, each field a candidate, if you will. You look at it and look at those factors that I just mentioned about safety and also about the suitability for flying. Okay, so once you found one or more places that are safe and good, a good choice for flying in all respects, as far as you can tell, well then you're going and you've done your scouting. Okay, well then you're gonna maybe want to make a list of things to do and not to do. Number 3 here before you fly, because when I was starting off, and even now today, on every flight there's some things I do real well and there's some things I could do better. And so, especially if you're going to a new spot and whatnot, there's a lot of things to keep in mind that are very important. Every one of them is very important, and if you miss just one of them, you could have a bad experience with the flight, even a crash. So that's where I started writing these things down pre-flight, and I'd have a different flight plan and note like I have here for each flying spot, right? So once you've chosen your place and you figured out your do's and don'ts, and your do's and don'ts might include things like I want to start using more rudder now. Maybe you've just been doing yank and bank, and so one of the things that you want to do on this flight and part of your flight plan, because in addition to flying safe and having a good place to fly, you may want to achieve certain things in your RC pilot, self teaching experience, right? There probably, no matter how good of a pilot you are, there's probably always going to be things that you want to add to what you already can do, or you want to do things that you already can do even better. So that might include, for a new pilot, you might be starting off doing a lot of yank and bank. You might be saying to yourself, okay, on this flight, I'm going to start using some rudder, and you might be wanting to remind yourself that you might want to throttle up a little bit on your turns, things like that. And it's hard to remember all these things, right? So you write them down pre-flight and you think about it and you plan your whole flight long before you get to the field. And the night before is when I do it, right? And then, so you know exactly what you're doing. And then the next morning or afternoon when you go to the field, you already know what you're doing. You already have a plan, and you can review your notes here very quickly to remember all the things you want to remember to do or not do, and you can remember what you learned on your pre-flight scouting, and of course you're planning your flight, and now you're going to fly your plan. And then I'll oftentimes do a flight diagram here, which is the number 4 item on my little list here. And we'll pretend this is a lake and this is a dock. And when I did my floats maiden with the Carbon Cub S2, I made a diagram just like this, because in order for the flight to be safe, and mostly for it to be just a stress-free flying situation, I needed to note these things. So I'm noting the direction of the wind here, which is from the northeast. So I'm noting that, and this is the lake, and this is the dock that I'm going to fly from. So I'm just making a diagram, and these are trees I need to avoid on my approaches for landing and whatnot. So I've just made a note here that this is the orientation of the lake, and this is north, south, east-west. I've just noted here that I'm going to take off into the wind like that. See, to the northeast, into the wind. And this is going to be my circuit. You know, this is a very simple circuit. I might have more complicated ones where there's other things to avoid, obstacles in the middle of the, not in a lake, but in a flying over the land. There might be some obstacles within my circuit that I need to note. But there you go. That just reminds me, I'm flying off the dock. Wind's going to be forecasted to be from the northeast, which is that direction. This is going to be my direction for takeoff. Northeast wind coming from the northeast wind, so that's my takeoff direction. And I would note that right there. Let's do that. All right, so I would maybe right on here. Take off. If you can read my scrawl. There. That's in my takeoff direction reminder. Yeah. Yeah. And then that would be my circuit. And of course, when I come into land, then I'm in a land, touchdown somewhere in here. So there you go. That really, really helps me. And I bet it would really help a new person and even, other folks not so new, perhaps. Anyway, just a little idea for newbies. Thought I'd throw it out there. Hope it helps somebody. If it helps even one person, then my job is done. Thanks. Mark, signing off. Have a great day. Enjoy your RC. And